On this edition of Gameball College Kickoff, we're going to recap the top four matchups from last week of week 4 of the college football season. And plus, in our second segment, we're going to talk about which teams in the SEC have a chance to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide. And of course, in our third segment, we will bring you the top four matchups in college football heading into week 5 this weekend. Stick around. Gameball College Kickoff begins now. What's happening, everyone? Welcome to Gameball College Kickoff, where the football season never ends. I'm Marcus Young Genius Jenkins.
It's your boy, Michael Riley.
And I'm Luke Hartnett.
And once again, the three amigos are in the building to bring you this episode. We're going to kick things off, of course, with the recap of the top four matchups of week 4 in the college football season. Wisconsin and Michigan definitely didn't go. I think a lot of people did not see this coming. Wisconsin basically owned Michigan at home. 28-0 was the score at halftime in this game, and the Badgers never looked back at this one. 35-14 will be the final score in that contest. Auburn and Texas A&M, a great SEC contest. We'll talk about that a little bit further here in just a moment, but Auburn would beat Texas A&M by a score of 28-20. Notre Dame and Georgia, this game kind of like a defensive grudge match, if you say so. Kind of started off slow. It was tied at 0 at the end of the first quarter. But for the most part, I thought it was a pretty defensive-minded game for both teams. Georgia will come out on top by a score of 23-17, giving the Fighting Irish their first loss of the season. And then this game that we'll also talk about a little bit further, and that is Texas defeating Oklahoma State 36-30. That boy Sam Elgin, though. Yeah, we're gonna talk about him a little bit, but definitely a big win for the Longhorns, so to speak. But we're gonna back it up and we'll talk about Auburn and Texas A&M. Bo Nix and company would come out on top. Luke, I'm gonna pass this one on to you first. How was Auburn able to overcome Texas A&M?
They were able to just get a 2-score lead on the road there. In college football, anytime you get up double figures in a road environment, that's just huge, especially in conference play. These two were no strangers to each other, not anymore. They play there. They're both in the SEC West, hence they played every year since A&M has joined the conference. So that's going back to, I think, 2012 or better. So, Auburn, they seem to always kind of squeak some out there at Kyle Field. I remember one particular, I believe it was 2014. It was the year after Johnny Manziel won the Heisman. He was back at A&M there, and they went to Kyle Field and played a glorious game there. A little more high scoring affair back then, if memory serves me correct, but got a great defensive stop at the end, and Auburn. I really like what they do. They know they have a true freshman at quarterback there. They know that the defense is the backbone of the team. They don't try to be anyone they're not. They know who they are. They stick to who they are. They're very just very true to very true to their method. Every once in a while. They could Auburn teams pass. They might get that Cam Newton at quarterback. They might have those running backs, Cadillac Williams, Ronnie Brown, etc. More recently, Kerryon Johnson. But when they don't have a bread and butter guy like that, they seem to know their brand, if you will.
All right, and Mike, we'll swing this on you. How do you feel like Auburn was able to take care of Texas A&M?
Well, you have to give Auburn's defense a lot of credit. I think, in my opinion, they are the deepest defensive group in the conference in the country as well. And because they kept Texas A&M offense in check for most of the games until the last 2 possessions where they gave up 2 critical touchdowns towards the end of the game. But overall, they caused havoc against Texas A&M offense. They was able to stop the run. They played gap assignment football and was able to make the quarterback feel uncomfortable in the offense. And forced critical missed errors throws and forced 3-and-outs and all that stuff. So Auburn's defense played extremely well until the last 2 possessions. Then you got to give it to the offense. That freshman quarterback, Bo Nixon, it seems like he's been playing along. He's not even – it don't seem like he's a freshman quarterback playing that position. And he's just poised and calm and cool, collected. He's going to get better and better. And the running game's been effective. The passing game's been effective. Like Luke said, they know who they are. They come up with little fancy trick plays here and there. But overall, I just like the overall Auburn team. They play smash mouth football, play time of possession, and play good defense, and that's how they've been winning their games.
The thing that worries me about them moving forward, though, I understand they were able to come back from a 14-lead deficit against Oregon week 1, but they're not really built to play from behind or play from ahead team. So if a future opponent can get a 10, 17-point lead on them, is where I think they'd be running into some struggles.
All right, point well taken. And once again, that game would improve the Auburn Tigers to a record of 4-0 heading into Week 5. That's going to take us from Texas, to the next matchup, and that is Texas coming up big against Oklahoma State by a score of 36-30. Sam Ehlinger, 4 touchdown passes in this contest. Mike, we'll start with you on this one. How was Texas able to play so well against Oklahoma State?
Well, it was all on Sam Ehlinger. We all know their defense's secondary's hurt at the moment. And once they get healthy, it could get better. But it all rises to Texas offense. We haven't seen this high-powered Texas offense in a long time, since the Vince Young days and all that good stuff, if I'm not mistaken. And defensively, they'll get better and all that. Oklahoma State is just a very balanced team, but Texas was able to make more plays than Oklahoma State and eventually got the win at home and got that much needed win to open up the conference play. So overall, this was a good win by Texas A&M. Excuse me, not Texas A&M, Texas at home. They'll get better on defense and going forward, and they're still my favorites to win the Big 12 Conference.
All right, and Mike, as I swing this on to you, one of the biggest things that stuck out to me in this game is kind of started off slow in the first quarter. Now the second quarter, respectively, Texas would score 21 points. Oklahoma State would score 17 points. Then it kind of winded back down from there. Do you think that second quarter kind of made the difference of how Texas was able to defeat Oklahoma State?
No, I think what made the difference is Oklahoma State took a 23-21 second half lead there, and I think Texas they responded with the ensuing kickoff, went going right down the field and ultimately getting the lead right back for what I believe was a 28-23 lead. They weren't behind for long, but for them to basically respond the way they did once Oklahoma State kind of got the lead on. I mean, Oklahoma State when they look Coach Gundy looks at the tape of this. He's going to lament the red zone errors they had on there. They had a 4th and 1 there in the second half where they got a delay of game, and then decided to try a fake field goal on that, which just couldn't have gone any worse for them. They had multiple possessions in the first half where they couldn't get touchdowns when they absolutely needed to. And in the big picture, I think don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. I mean, for all intent and purposes, Oklahoma looks like at least one of the 2 best teams in the conference, probably the best. They're going to be in that Big 12 championship game. They're going to play Texas unless somebody else can beat Texas to get in there. And Oklahoma State, they missed their opportunity because they're essentially 2 games back at Texas now.
All right. Once again, a big win by Texas over the weekend, 36-30 over Oklahoma State. That's going to do it for our first segment. Coming up in our second segment, which team in the SEC has a chance to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide? Find out what Luke and Mike have to say about that as we come back to Gameball College Kickoff. Back in a moment. everyone. Welcome back to Gameball College Kickoff. Now, in this second segment, we're going to talk about, this is pointed more at Alabama. Which team is a threat to Alabama and has a chance to beat them? Luke, I'll start with you first. Is there a team that sticks out to you as a threat to the Crimson Tide?
Well, I mean, there's a handful of teams. October 12th, they go to Texas A&M. That's never an easy place to go into and win. Early November, they get LSU at home this year. LSU just seems completely different on the offensive side of the ball. They avoid both Georgia and Florida in the regular season. Should they win the West Division, they will more than likely face one of those two in the SEC championship game. But the answer is Auburn. It's always Auburn, especially when the games are at Auburn. Auburn hasn't won at Alabama since the 2010 quote-unquote comeback when they can't rally from 24 down to get the win on their way to a championship for Auburn that year. So they've lost every trip to Tuscaloosa since then. They don't go to Tuscaloosa this year. They get them at home. They get them at Auburn. They've won 2 of the last 3 at home. I believe the two teams are 11-11 the last 22 years. It's Auburn. The answer, as always, is Auburn.
All right, Luke says Auburn. Mike, you see differently.
Well, if Alabama and the SEC wins the West Division, the teams that could potentially beat them, Georgia or Florida. But as of right now, for what I'm seeing, the team in the SEC that could beat Alabama is LSU. They are a complete balanced team. They play good defense, and their offense is scoring from everywhere. Running the ball, passing the ball, they are well balanced right now. And that quarterback from LSU, he is on a different level, putting up mat numbers, if you dare I say. It's just like, wow, he just nickel and diamond, 5 touchdowns here, 6 touchdowns there. It's just like, it kind of reminds me of when Jamarcus Russell was playing, but this is better than Jamarcus Russell.
Right.
So as of right now, what I'm seeing overall from the LSU, they are a complete team, offensive, defensively, that can pose Alabama problems because Alabama defensively, they lost 2 key players on IR. One, the linebacker spot, and I forgot the other defensive spot. They just keep getting hurt left and right, keep getting dinged up. So that's kind of been Alabama's weakness. And I think LSU can exploit that. And when that matchup comes, I can't wait to see it. But right now, as it stands from what I see with my own 2 eyes from a distance, I like LSU chances. Then I go with Auburn's chances.
If LSU can make it a 4-quarter game or maybe take them to overtime, but Alabama ultimately wins, they have to go to Alabama. That is, has to go to Mississippi State the following week. You don't see it much with Alabama, but you almost see it all the time in college football. That one heavyweight, they eked that one out the week before. They had that road trap game the next week. Mississippi State would be that trap game.
And we always do say Alabama could potentially lose, but then again, it always comes Alabama to win the SEC championship. So this could be the year that Alabama potentially miss out on the college football playoff. We don't know. So right now, I'm rolling with LSU Tigers for their chances.
These SEC teams that play Alabama need to start wearing orange just for that game. Just wear orange. Wear orange when you play Bama. It works, I think.
I don't know, that would be interesting to see Alabama out of a college football playoff. But like I said, so we got LSU with Mike, Auburn with Luke. So we'll see which of those 2 teams.
That's going to be a great game when those 2 get together. Auburn and LSU, that is.
I agree with that.
I know it's coming up on it here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. That's going to be there's going to be a lot riding on that game.
Who you got?
No, that's actually where I was going to chime in. I'm impressed with Auburn, and they're off to a hot start, and also like LSU as well, because this is probably the most talented LSU team that I've seen in a very long time. And they look like, to me, I think they would pose the biggest threat. I'm going to say I'm kind of torn down the middle. And it's funny that even reviewing this question, even before we shot this episode, I was actually honestly torn between these 2 teams. I'm going to draw it down the line and say LSU and Auburn both have a pretty good chance of beating Alabama, but we're going to find out going through the course of this season. And that's going to do it for our second segment. Coming up, the top 4 matchups heading into Week 5. And as Luke has officially dubbed it, the top 4 forecast coming up. Gameball College Kickoff continues in a moment. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to Gameball College Kickoff. Now, in our third segment, we're going to bring you the top 4 matchups heading into Week 5 of the college football season, starting with the 3-0 Virginia Cavaliers taking on Notre Dame, who obviously is off of their first loss of the season at the hands of the Georgia Bulldogs. Luke, I'll start with you on this one. What do you like about this matchup?
Everything about it, particularly whenever Virginia has the football. I mean, it's a very, very stout defense that Notre Dame has there. What I noticed when they played Georgia this past weekend, just that's one of the fastest defenses that Notre Dame's had during the Brian Kelly tenure there. That's always been kind of the one thing. You go back to the playoff against Clemson last year, you go back to the championship against Alabama a few years before that. They were good. They were just kind of lead foot, though, as a unit, but they were a very fast defensive team this year. And then Bryce Perkins for Virginia, the Wahoos, they were down 17-0 at home to Old Dominion, this past weekend, was able to rally, 28 unanswered and get the win there. Maybe they're looking ahead, who knows, but that's going to be a great matchup when Virginia has the ball. Just that speedy Notre Dame defense and a great quarterback in Perkins, who I think is going to have Virginia in the ACC championship game this year. So going to be very interesting on that end. And on the flip side of that, I mean, Virginia, they got to get a lead. They got to make Notre Dame one-dimensional. That's not a knock towards Ian Book, but I mean the Notre Dame run game and that offensive line, that's an NFL offensive line Notre Dame has. So if they can get a lead on them and make them a little bit more one-dimensional, where they can just kind of tee off on the quarterback and trust the defensive backs and whatever coverage they run, that'd be a big benefit to them.
All right, Mike, I'm gonna swing this to you. What do you like about this matchup?
Well, it's going to be which team defensively can make one last play and which offense will have the ball last and not make mistake. Virginia was down last week, but they was able to rally back and get the win. And Notre Dame was in a dogfight, went to toe-to-toe with Georgia, but at the end lost the game. So can Notre Dame bounce back and give Virginia their first loss? Or can Virginia get Notre Dame their second loss and be 4-0 and keep this train rolling? It just comes down to which team plays mistake-free, fundamentally sound, and defense. Which defense is going to make the play and which offense is going to have the ball last.
All right, Notre Dame looking to avoid their second loss in a row, going against Virginia. Can they hand the Cavaliers their first loss of the season? We're going to move on to the Pac-12. The USC Trojans sharing a 3-1 record with the Washington Huskies. Mike, we'll start with you on this one. What do you like about USC and Washington?
Well, last week USC got an upset win at home against Utah. And they do have one of the best receivers in the country, the receiving core, as I say. And defensively, they stepped up and played better against Utah at home last week. Can they carry that on the road in a hostile environment against a Washington team? We don't know. And how will Washington be able to stop USC's offense and the secondary stop their receivers? And can the offense find a weakness in the USC defense? If Washington's offense can do that, they'll be able to win this game at home.
All right, USC and Washington. Luke, what do you like about this matchup?
USC is going to be, they're down to their third-string quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. I know he at least finished the game against Utah. I don't know if he's going to be starting against Washington or not. Jacob Eason at Washington, he's ever since they lost to Cal, he's really been finding his footing and has proven to be the five-star recruit that he was coming out of a Seattle high school area there before he committed to Georgia before transferring back home. Telling thing for me here is 2 weeks ago, USC went to BYU, lost in overtime. This past week, Washington went to BYU and they won, what was it, 44-19, something like that. I mean, they just completely dismantled them from the jump. So I know that there's no transparent property in football. Just because Team A beat Team B and Team B beat Team C means Team C will beat Team. I know it doesn't work like that, but it's a good indicator. I think in such a short time, they have a common opponent within 2 weeks' time of each other and a common location, Provo, Utah. So it's a very strong indication. And home field you always got to like no matter what.
All right, USC and Washington, a great test for both teams, no question about it. We're going to go from the Pac-12 to the SEC, Mississippi State. First off of a loss to the Kansas State Wildcats, going against a 4-0 Auburn, a big win over Texas A&M. Luke, I'm going to swing this back to you. What do you like about Auburn and Mississippi State?
Mississippi State's actually coming off a win over the Kentucky Wildcats. So a huge bounce-back win for them, 28-13 at home for them there. For them to not have, that week off. I mean, I understand they got K-State and Kentucky both at home, but that I think everybody needed a week off after that. For them to not only come out and play, but play well. And Kentucky, they're not exactly chopped liver. They had a 21-10 lead on Florida there, knocked Felipe Franks out of the game for, I believe, the season, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they did.
But, so great bounce back win for Mississippi State. These are two teams that kind of are very, very identical. Auburn is usually just a lot more talented than Mississippi State is, but all the things I said about Auburn at the top of the show here, it can apply to Mississippi State. They know who they are. They don't try to get too terribly fancy. They don't run a flea flicker or end around here or there. They know defense is their backbone. They know they want to get that running game going or whatever else. Kind of going back and forth at quarterback right there. Looks like Garrett Schrader's the man moving forward. He played very well when he got his opportunity in the second half against K-State. Just couldn't quite bring him back, or he actually did bring him back. They couldn't hang on to the lead, actually. But he played very well against Kentucky last week. They had the lead throughout the duration of the game there. So, but Auburn, much more talented team. Both teams are starting quarterbacks, true freshman quarterbacks. And but again, the game's at Auburn. That means just about everything.
Yep, I agree with that one. Auburn, Mississippi State, what do you like about this matchup?
Well, how would Mississippi State offense go against Auburn's function defense? Because Auburn's defense, they get after it. And especially with the freshman quarterback, they're coming. They're going to come at you either way. And Auburn's offense, what are they going to do against Mississippi State's defense? How they going to rise to occasion? Can Bo Nixon keep this train rolling and all that, since he did have a few more starts than Mississippi State's quarterback, which that gives him a more of an edge. Now, my issue with Mississippi State is their special teams, because their special teams, when they was playing against K-State a few weeks back, gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown, and that was the deciding factor for K-State to win the game. So can Mississippi State special teams can be able to stop Auburn's special teams? If Mississippi State special teams can win on that era, then Mississippi State has a chance to win this game. It all comes down to the special teams for Mississippi State will be the deciding factor. If they can stop Auburn's special teams, then they can win this game.
All right.
I'm going to give a shout out to Garrett Schrader though too. He's the quarter. He's at the time with the backup quarterback for Miss State. They got plugged into the second half there. But with this team down 7 and about 2 minutes to go, facing 4th and 16, he's the one that kind of got helicoptered. He was measured to be 9 feet off the ground at his maximum capacity there. He came up a yard short, but it's just the absolute effort that guy gave out there to win. If Mississippi State can keep it close, they might lose. It won't be because of him though.
All right, Auburn looking to improve to 5-0 and continue to be a threat in the SEC. We're going to move from the SEC and we're going to go to the Big 12. Luke, your team, the Kansas State Wildcats, taking on Oklahoma State. Of course, coming off of a loss to the Texas Longhorns. Mike will shoot this one your way. What do you like about this Oklahoma State K-State matchup?
Well, K-State got a much-needed bye from Mississippi State, and now they're going to a hostile environment. They're no stranger there, but the last few years they haven't had success at Oklahoma State. So how will K-State match up against Oklahoma State? Because Oklahoma State is coming off a tough loss. They left a lot on the field that nearly cost them the game. So what did Oklahoma State learn from film session and all that from the Texas game to apply against K-State game? And the key thing is, can the offense minimizes their mistakes? Because we all know K-State is good for not beating themselves at times. If Oklahoma State doesn't beat themselves offensively, play good defense, and the critical part of Oklahoma State they have to win this game is special teams, because K-State is one of the top 10 teams in the NCAA kickoff and punt returns. So Oklahoma State's special teams has to eliminate big plays against K-State's special teams. If they can do that, if they can find a way to fix their mistakes from Texas' loss, they'll win at home and they'll be back on track.
All right, Luke, we're going to swing this your way. What do you like about this matchup? Obviously, Kansas State, a big win on the road at Mississippi State. Another big test for them and another hostile environment.
Another road game, another touchdown underdog for Kansas State this week. Mike made a lot of good points there. I think one thing that matters about Oklahoma State not having to spend, it's not like if they would have played, they opened the season with Oregon State. Perhaps you could argue that Oregon State's been a worse Power 5 team the last 5, 6, 7 years in Kansas, which is really saying something right there. So, but they played Texas. They played at Texas. Even if they would have beat Texas, they had to play hard. They were going to get, win or lose, they were going to get beat up. And K-State's got 2 weeks to get ready for this, and they got a coaching staff that hasn't lost since November of 2017. Winners win. I don't know how they do it. They just, winners win. That's what they do. That's what they try, put everything into doing there. Skylar Thompson, without having to look over his shoulder at Alex Delton anymore, he's just taken off to a whole other level. Only completed 10 of 18 against Mississippi State the last time out there, but all 10 completions, so timely, so big. They need 10, they get 13. They need 8, they get 9. He knows how to get that big time play to get that defense just a little more rest on the sideline, keep the sticks moving, flip field position if nothing else. People use the term, as kind of an insult, but he's a great game manager. He really is. A very, very mobile guy too.
All right. This game definitely, without a question, this is big for both of these teams. Obviously, Oklahoma looking to bounce back from Texas. Kansas State, this is an opportunity for them to maybe get themselves a little bit noticed, a little bit more on the radar. You go into a hostile environment, beat an SEC team, and then you pass another test against Oklahoma State. So, to me, I think this is one of those, it's a big game, and maybe this one could have a big reward for one of these teams and a bounce-back win for Oklahoma State. And that's going to take us to the predictions part of this episode. Virginia and Notre Dame. Luke, who do you have?
I'm going to go Notre Dame 30-20. I think I think it could be a neck-and-neck game throughout. Most of the contest might even be tied at halftime. I just think Notre Dame's going to make one more play in the second half. I think once they get that lead of double figures, they're just going to be able to hang on. Perkins is going to get his. He's too good not to. The good news for Virginia is that this is not a conference game. They're still right there in the thick of the ACC race, playing an independent. Notre Dame, they're in the ACC in every sport except football. So they don't really have as much to lose as Notre Dame does. I think Virginia's just kind of wanting to make a statement with a good performance. I'm going to go Irish 30-20 on this one, though.
All right, Mike, is this a bounce-back win for the Fighting Irish, or are they dropping 2 straight?
I think they dropped 2 straight. I'm going with Virginia. They had a slow start last week, and I get it, but I think they can figure out to get a fast start, and especially with the talented players that they had. Notre Dame is very more talented than they are, but I like Virginia's chances. So I'm going to roll Virginia to keep that train rolling. I'm going to say score of 24-17.
They got to get an early lead, Virginia does, in my opinion, because I think if Notre Dame gets up, especially early by 7, 10, 14 points, that offensive line and that running game is just going to take over, going to limit Virginia's opportunity. If they can at least maintain a tie game or have it be a touchdown either way, Virginia's goal, get to the fourth quarter. They have to get to the fourth quarter still in, they'll have a chance.
I'm going with Notre Dame just for the simple fact that I was impressed that they were able to go toe-to-toe with the Bulldogs despite the loss, especially against an SEC team. I'm going to say this is a close game. I'm going to say it comes down to a late field goal. I'm going to say 24-27, the Fighting Irish. USC and Washington. Mike, who do you got?
USC had a good, impressive win at home, on the road in a hostile environment. I just don't see it. I like Washington winning at home against USC. It's going to be too much for USC to handle, especially with a third-string quarterback. So I'm rolling with the Huskies to win 34-17.
All right, Luke, you thinking Washington takes care of it at home?
I actually agree with everything Mike said, right down to the 34-17 final score. I think that loss to Cal was that one wake-up call that the whole rest of the conference was hoping that Washington wouldn't get this year. And it came very early in the season, came in a conference game, came in a division game, and it came at home. And I think losing that game at home to Cal is going to bring out the best Washington team we'll see moving forward for the rest of the season. And you just can't bet against Coach Chris Peterson. He's as good at getting his team ready when they need to be as well. And Washington, they do have a score to settle. Remember when they made the playoff and lost to Alabama, their lone regular season loss was at home to USC. The two haven't played since then, so he'll definitely have a reminder of that.
All right, I agree with both of you. I'm going with the Huskies at home, as well. I'm going to give it a score. I'll say 21-14. SEC matchup: Mississippi State, Auburn. Luke, does Auburn go 5-0?
Yes, I think like I said, two teams that kind of mirror each other, but Auburn's at home and they're just a better roster, top to bottom. Like the job that Gus Malzahn's doing there as well. He always seems to have Auburn ready to play. Even when they lose, like the last 2 or 3 years there, they've always for lack of a better term, lost impressively if there's ever such a thing. But no, Auburn, they should. I expect them to take care of business here. Bo Nix, I think he gets rolling a little bit in the first half this year. One thing that's been a struggle for Auburn, pretty much every game this year, even the games against, I believe, Tulane, and there was another game they played after the Tulane, I believe, as well. They kind of struggled in the first half of all 4 games this year. I think they kind of make a concentrated effort to get on track early this game, and I'm going to go with Auburn to win 35-20.
All right, Luke, do you agree with the same thing, or do you think Mississippi improves to 4-1?
I like Auburn to win at home. It's too much for Mississippi State to overcome on the road in a hostile environment. Defensively, Auburn has better talent than Mississippi State's offense is going to be too much. So I'm going to say 38-20. Auburn gets it done at home.
I agree with the Auburn win. I think just them being at home maybe convince me if they're on the road at Mississippi State. But I just like just the way they're just playing football right now. I got them winning. I'm going to say 28-14. Kansas State, Oklahoma State. Luke, your squad going up 4-0?
I think so. I really think so. It's just a huge game for Kansas State, not only because of the Big 12 opener for them anyway, but they get Baylor at home the following week. Then they have another bye week October 12th. Then they get another home game against TCU on the October 19th. Then they get Oklahoma again at home October 26th. So the slate sets up very, very possible K-State could be unbeaten going into the Oklahoma game this year. And I think they will be, should they win in Stillwater this Saturday. Oklahoma State played a big, bad Texas team, got roughed up a little bit there. K-State's got that very necessary week off after the trip to Mississippi State. A few things I'd like to see K-State maybe improve on is I understand that mistakes kind of happen and everything else, but they let Mississippi State capitalize on almost everything though. A fumbled punt turns into a touchdown. Roughing the quarterback with 40 seconds to go turns into a touchdown. They fumble an interception, gives them a new first down. Mississippi State that is, turns into a touchdown. They fumble another punt, turns into a field goal. So you're going to fumble punch, rope the quarterback, so on and so forth. I get all that, but they got to be able to stand the ground a little bit more here. But you're giving a coaching staff that just, I'm just surprised at how early they were able to identify every player's strength and how it applies to the team there. And personally, I think Mississippi State's just a little bit better than Oklahoma State. So K-State with 2 weeks to prep, I think gets the win there, and I'm going to go with an identical score to the Auburn game. I predicted 35-20 K-State. I think it's a statement game. They understand how good they are. I think they kind of got that trepidation or unsureness out of the way. I think we're about to see a whole lot of K-State swag coming out going forward, where they know they're the better team as soon as the ball's kicked off.
All right, definitely a big test for Kansas State. Mike, do you agree with that? Are you ready to jump on the K-State wave, or does Oklahoma bounce back from a big loss?
I think Oklahoma State bounces back at home. It's that loss that has that bad sour taste in their mouth. And at home, they're a different team. It doesn't matter what record you are, good or bad. Oklahoma State is a different type of animal at home, and I think they get it correct offensively and defensively. The number one key is special teams. If Oklahoma State special teams has success early, they will win this game. So I was going with Oklahoma State to bounce back at home. I'm going to say close one. I'm going to say 38-31 Oklahoma State gets it done at home.
I talked about Kansas State a little bit last week, Mike, and how impressed I was with them. And I think this was kind of when they beat Mississippi State and how they won in a hostile environment against an SEC opponent. That kind of assured me that everything I was talking about, how impressed I was, and if I was buying a team this year, that was Kansas State. I didn't expect Kansas State. I'm not going to lie to you, Luke. I didn't expect Kansas State to be that good this year. I want to continue to ride the wave with Kansas State. I just think they're going to build off of that big win in a hostile environment against an SEC opponent. I think they'll get it done on the road again. I'm going to say they'll win by a score of 28-17. I like the Wildcats.
They have an experienced offensive line and experienced quarterback, so win or lose, they're going to be in every game they play.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode of Gameball College Kickoff. Social media, on Facebook, you can find me under Marcus Jovel ENT Jenkins. Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter, find your boy at Jovel ENT.
Social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Gmail, YouTube. You can follow it all on the right side. It basically be your left side. So continue supporting, and just thank you for everything, being a fan since day one. So thank you for everyone that's been following.
Find me on Facebook at Luke Hartnett. Find me on Twitter at Luke Hartnett2. Going back on what Mike said there, we appreciate everybody that's been a fan since day one.
Thank you.
And if today is day one for you, we hope that there's a day 2, day 3, and many, many more after that. Doesn't matter when day 1 was. Just keep riding with us.
Absolutely. We definitely appreciate it because obviously we can't do this without you guys. And one last thing I want to say, October the 6th, which is on a Sunday, if you guys have nothing, come on out. I will be performing at the Jazz House as part of the LK Spotlight Series. So shout out to DP, shout out to Dre Logic, who will also be hosting. There'll also be some live battles. And then also my boy Seb the Haitian will also be performing that same day at the Right Room in Kansas City. So pull up to either one of those events. I'm Marcus Young Genius Jenkins.
I'm Michael Riley.
And I'm Luke Hartnett.
Until next time, thank you for tuning in to Gameball College Kickoff, for the football season never ends.